Dobra, ja ciebie słyszę.
Okay, we are live. Let me share your screen. Uh, Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Today we are again together with Chris, and today we are gonna discuss the new way, probably the new way of handling error messages. And also, I review um, my code changes related to Saga Orchestrator and write some tests. But first will be a discussion. Okay, screen. This screen. Do you see my
Okay.
screen, Chris?
Yep.
Okay, so this is the schema of our algorithm for Saga Orchestrator, step by step. And so we discussed about it, let's say, 2 streams um, ago, but Chris uh, realized that we can improve handling error messages because we can use the acknowledge mechanism. Maybe you can describe more this topic because
Uh,
you explore it.
yeah. Well, we discussed this off stream that we basically have a when we are defining a step in our transaction, then we are defining its event name, which will be the event that we want to send on the message, and then we want the client to to basically do its work on it. And then if something fails while the client is actually doing some work, what we wanted to do is to send a compensation event name. And so that means that we wanted to send another message on the queue. And now, when I was discovering how to work with the retry mechanism, I figured out that we can actually, instead of sending a next message to the queue, we can actually reject the first one and just do a rollback. So we can really like cut our error messages to a minimum. So we don't create and post new message on the queue, but we rather just reject the original message, and then the rejection is picked up, I imagine, by the orchestrator, which is doing a rollback.
Yeah,
So that's the idea.
the rollback, or maybe in this, in this moment, we can also decide maybe we want to send the message to the queue once again on 2 times again. Maybe we need to define some threshold, and then we want to perform rollback. What do you think? Maybe because it's related, yeah, with the retry mechanism.
So sorry, could you repeat
Yeah.
once again what you said?
So after the client will reject the message, we can
Hmm.
also then use a retry mechanism, right? We can send the message once again or roll back it. It depends.
I wouldn't send it. I wouldn't
Uh-huh.
let, because I would imagine that it fails on the processing. So imagine that we are doing some kind of try catch, and I would assume that the code is deterministic. So it means that with the provided data, it should always run with the same result. So I imagine that, I would do a rollback, because I know that you will now say that, well, maybe there was a connection failure for the database or something like that.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, maybe you are right, because if we want to use retry mechanism from the client perspective, we should rather implement it on client side. I mean, that if something went wrong for client, he should retry this maybe 2 or 3 times, because some of problems with database, and then uh, reject the message, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean with the
Mm-hmm.
like we need to draw some kind of boundaries that we intend not to break.
Mm-hmm.
So from my perspective, those boundaries would be to define what we are responsible for.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
are
and
responsible for orchestrating the transactions, so putting next messages on the queue so they can, with the correct payload, run logic on the clients. But we are only responsible for that. So for the logic of like the order of running the transaction steps, but we are also responsible for putting message on the queue. So this is our responsibility. If on our end there is a failure, for example, if, as I said before, we have connection issue with the queue or something like that, then we should think about how we can retry this. Maybe we should cache it. Maybe we should store this in the log and then try to retry in some period of time. Or how should we deal basically when this bottleneck, because this actually becomes a bottleneck of some sort, fails when the queue fails.
mm-hmm.
So I imagine that we are also not responsible for setting up the queue on the client side. So like they need to replicate it, etc., or partition on their own. But we should take care of our like area. So yeah, so to make the decision on uh, how we prove our solution from not delivering messages, and how do we move to the next steps so we can coordinate the transactions. Like I would set the boundaries there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. I think it's right way, and it's simpler than sending another message, because I think rejecting the message is very clear intention, a clear sign that we something went wrong. We don't need a message, right? So yeah, it's definitely a good idea. So this will affect a little bit our Saga Orchestrator step-by-step schema. Uh, this this step is not needed anymore, and we can remove it. Oh, okay. Uh, this. Uh, we can create this arrow. And here we have a compensation path here. And we just need to create the second input to our Saga Orchestrator, because this input will be used by the Saga plugin. So now we don't have only the message input, we will have also the uh, input with the compensation related to the only to the compensation, and the input to this path will be only transaction ID, not the
Mhm.
whole message. Uh, yeah, so maybe. Mm,
I just checked that there's the acknowledgement, so an ACK, and there is a negative acknowledgement that's
mhm.
called NAC.
Okay.
I also posted this on the chat. I mean, on the YouTube. I can send it to you over the Slack,
Mhm.
so you can also later check it out. But basically, I feel like we should follow that way. because it's as you said, it's just simpler.
Yes. Okay, receive transaction ID for compensation. Okay. Okay. And this is the only modification for our schema, I think. Yes. Is there an active transaction with provided ID in the Saga? Then the plugin is something is wrong with our plugin. But okay, let's go to the code. I prepared some code for next part of our stream. This will be the testing. And here we have the Saga Orchestrator. We have a start, push, and now we need to implement a third method, and this will be not stop, but compensate or reject or
Maybe rollback.
oh, rollback, right? Yeah, rollback. And here we need a transaction ID. Let's start with this. And here we have this if, and we can we can remove it and paste it here. We don't need this anymore. Saga options is not needed. Okay, yeah, this. Okay, engine options, right, and here. Oh, this is not needed. So yes, here we have the engine with the compensate method, and we need to async. Saga subscriber on message. Maybe null here. Will not. And I don't need test even because now you see this nullable mechanism notified me that it can be null. So yeah, I need to check if the Saga Orchestrator is started first. That's why I like it so much. Okay. Yeah, and I believe it's our modification. Okay, maybe it's for later, but we also need to include this method in our interface, Saga Orchestrator. Oh, now I remember that you don't like this, so I will move this type to different file, and here we have new version of Saga Orchestrator with two methods, push method with QName and input message, and this is the green path when we want to pass a valid message, and rollback when we know that a message was rejected, so we want to roll back mm, rollback transaction with this ID. Um, yes, so we need to go into our RabbitMQ plugin also to implement this new behavior, and this will be in the consuming, right? Uh, no, this not consumer factory. Push. Okay, and here now we need to somehow. Okay, this received push. Oh no, not maybe not here. We need to probably subscribe. No, orchestrator push. Yes, subscribing. Okay, so here we have basic publish. So when we publishing this message to this queue name, and we want to know right when something went wrong. I mean, we need to somehow check if this was acknowledged, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now I need to open documentation because I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm also now checking
Okay,
how to do that.
okay, I see. Send me a link. Channel.
Because then on there's a basic consume, because I didn't see what you're doing, but the basic consume I imagine is on the customer side. So
Yeah, I mentioned about the basic publish, right? Because
mhm.
for with our plugin,
But
we
basic publish is a pub sub pattern,
mhm.
as far as I understand.
So yeah, because I use basic publish in our RabbitMQ plugin. So now I need to know if the this message was received and processed correctly, right?
Yes.
Uh, okay, and it was oh, it's not. Okay, how it works here? Get the delivery tag. Right, it was delivery tag. Yeah, but yeah, it's for customer, but we need to. Maybe I will check. What are methods here? No. Mhm.
Ah, okay. Now I get it. It will go to the dead letter queue.
Yes, but we didn't receive the information that something went wrong.
We won't, because this is happening only on the queue.
Yeah. Okay, so
So we would need to man somehow, because the acknowledgement or the negative acknowledgement or the acknowledgement, what it does, it's removing the message from the queue.
mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
No.
then we somehow would need to monitor the dead letters.
Yeah,
And
now I
now
remember that the result that letter. So probably we should abandon this idea, but this new method on the Saga Orchestrator I really like. So maybe I will.
because the dead letter is also present on the Azure
Mm-hmm.
service bus, it's the same. I mean, I don't know if it's the same, but there is the dead letter queuing there also.
Yes, yes, there is a little letter. Okay. Okay, so maybe no, we need to. I, I just.
We basically need to uh handle this kind of differently now, as I see it. Because from my perspective now, what we would need to do is that we would need to set, like, we need to hook up into, we would need to have a service,
Mm-hmm.
like not an orchestrator, but maybe a side, well, maybe that would be a part of orchestrator, but we would need to have a monitoring service or some kind of code that's monitoring the dead letter queue, which essentially is a queue
Mm-hmm.
that it is monitoring what is being sent to it, and it's consuming those messages, and based on what is there, we are doing the rollbacks.
Mm-hmm. So you want to monitor the the letter, right? Hmm. Okay. Hmm.
I mean, just from what I'm thinking out loud, basically,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm reading and I'm telling you what I understand from it.
Yeah, I still considering what is better, monitoring the letter or sending this message. error message, right? I mean, the letter is mm, it's
And it's
more
also
user
not
friendly, right?
what is more user friendly.
The letter, because client don't need to send error message.
Yes, that's true. They just need to knack it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm reading that safety. By default, dead letter messages are republished without publisher confirms turned on internally. Therefore, using DLX in a cluster RabbitMQ environment is not guaranteed to be safe. Messages are removed from the original queue immediately after publishing to the DLX target queue. This ensures that there is no chance of excessive message buildup that could exhaust broker resources, but messages can be lost if the target queue isn't available to accept messages. Dead lettering a message modifies its headers. The exchange name is replaced, but that's pretty understandable. But the routing key might be replaced with that specified in a queue performing dead lettering.
Yeah, so that lettering, I mean, monitoring that letter will be harder and more dangerous from our perspective. I mean, it
That
can.
depends how if we because now we would need to enforce someone to use certain configurations of the queue in order that it works with what we have in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So for example that there is if something is, for example, now that something when it's hitting the DLX, then it won't be brought back to the regular exchange. So it's not being brought back for a retry by the queue mechanism itself, but it rather stays there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Not so easy.
Yes, not easy. So the easier path maybe will be better for now, because it can be, I think, easily integrated. I mean, new solution. So we can uh, implement the service that will monitor the that letter, and if something will be, but it should be a lot of dead letters, right? For each queue has dead letters, so we need to be subscribed to each queue and to each dead letter of the queue. Um, okay, so is it hard? I mean, it's there are any um, no how to say it? Any problems to subscribe that letter or no?
I'm now researching on
Okay.
that.
Because
It seems like it's natural to include a listener on the
mhm,
DLQ. But now I'm checking. Yeah, I'm basically researching
okay,
because I just asked Google for monitor dead letter queue.
okay. But we need to be sure that mm, client will not configure those dead letters to um, send these messages, back mm, to the queue, right? Because
I mean, they can. They well, that actually that's interesting because we
mm,
could act because I imagine it. I saw somewhere that it's storing information about count how many times this message was dead lettered.
mhm,
So we can act on maybe it's been dead lettered 3 times and we are picking it up because yeah, we don't want it to be processed again and things like that. So this is something that we would need to uh, think about again. Someone asked TLDR, should I write a one-off program that reads messages from the dead letter queue and allows me to specify a target queue to send them to? And the answer is generally speaking yes.
mhm. Okay, so probably we need to also create some service, subscribe the letter to that letter queues and invoke rollbacks for each message from the letters. So it's more work for RabbitMQ plugin.
I would say so.
Because the RabbitMQ plugin will need to subscribe to those dead letters, and then if something will be received, then a plugin will invoke the orchestrator method rollback. Uh-huh.
I would do that. I'm sending it to you. I will try to keep it simple at the beginning. So I would because the DLX is exactly it's another queue
Mm-hmm.
basically that we can subscribe to, and I imagine that we should have a background service that is taking care of those messages and it's performing rollbacks for us.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, that's my go on it. This can also be handled by the client. But I imagine if we wanted to clear errors and we wanted to mark something as error with sending the message to the queue, and now we would just have a worker that would do that.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it's for each queue. Okay, so that letter Q that is dedicated to store the rejected messages. And
Hmm.
this queue is only one queue, or this is the queue for each queue?
That's a good question.
Because
And I
here,
don't know answer. I don't know the
okay.
answer. We would have to check in some kind of documents if there might be
Mm-hmm.
multiple or everything can be dumped to a single one. I don't know that.
Okay, but this letter Q, it's the default behavior. I mean, it's always like we have that letters queue, or it should be configured by the client.
It seems like now I'm checking this up in another article because it seems like we can because you can create queue from the code
Mm-hmm.
like with the library, or if it's already created you are just connecting to it, so I imagine that this works the same way.
Okay.
Right, look, like in here in this article, and then when they are declaring the queue on the exchange, they set the arguments and they set the header x dash dead letter exchange to DLX exchange. And then the queue knows that it has this DLX exchange configured for the dead messaging.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then few like then another paragraph is defining another queue and binding it all together.
Okay, so we need to exchange queue, test queue, arguments. Okay. Yeah, so I think we should implement such behavior, and we need to also modify our plan. I mean,
Yep.
we need to do more work with the plugin. Um, right now, we don't have. I mean, we have the implementation for the orchestrator, but we don't have um, for the plugin. And okay, that's okay. Mm, we have a method rollback, so we can use it. We have the compensate method on our engine. Yes, so from the orchestrator perspective is everything is was, let's say, implemented. Of course, we need to implement Saga log, but now we need to do rollback thing with the RabbitMQ plugin. Let's take a look on our backlog. GitHub. Um, we have to update it. So retries on fails. It's your job, and we can change, maybe not change it, but there is something about fails. Marking as failed. Okay, this here we have also payload and compensate message. Figure out
One
how
second.
payload.
I I need to take care of something, so I need 2 minutes. I will
Okay.
be off.
All right. Okay, so this is done. I'm talking to myself,
Okay.
Chris. Okay.
Apparently, no, you're talking to me. Apparently, it took. It's been really quick, so
Okay.
it's fine.
So here we have payloaded compensate message, and it's not the case. The case is not marking as failed, but running the compensation. Those two tasks are related to this topic. But marking as failed
They
is
are basically running the compensation because marking as failed is something that
in the Saga
marking
log.
now what has changed is that marking as failed uh, marking as failed would be something that means that the inside the log the transaction has been marked as failed already, I imagine, and then running the compensation, I would kind of redefine it that that's about building a side service or well a separate service or make it as part of orchestrator that there is a listener on the queue that's a DLX, so dead letter exchange, and based on the messages that are going in there, I would pick them up and I would roll back the transactions and remove them from the DLX to clear it out. That way, we should try to keep it tidy. So we are managing the dead letters and yeah.
Okay, so I rewrite this task to RabbitMQ plugin have to react on that letter messages and invoke compensation on orchestrator.
I would say so, yes.
Okay. So I'm assigned. So for next week, I need to work with RabbitMQ plugin, and okay, I already created the rollback method, so that's good. But I need to somehow consume it, and this will be done for the next stream.
Because I don't know. Basically, I don't know where do you where is this code now that's related to setting up those channels and assigning the
I can
events
show
that
you. This is in the hosting, so here, but not interface, but implementation. What? Okay.
not implemented.
Okay, client. This is deprecated, probably right. Uh, okay, I Saga
Mm-hmm.
client. Yeah, I need to remove this.
Initialized. Okay.
So here we have initialize, and we declaring those queues and exchange. So
I would do a separate client that would manage the DLQ to break the responsibilities, because that will be a similar code to the one that is here, but I would break it into two different files.
okay.
I mean, because the managing the dead letter is basically again also about just connecting to the queue, etc. But in the end, we need to be able to put the logic that's related to the dead letters with probably with setting up the queue,
Okay,
I would
okay.
say,
So
or connecting to it.
so probably I will create another client. I need to mm, this client have the Saga Orchestrator. Okay. Uh,
Because in the end, what we can do is we can also just set in the configuration files, for
mhm,
example, like uh, turn off the dead letter
mhm.
client, right? Or something like that. I mean, that we don't necessarily have to use, like someone don't necessarily have to use the rollbacks. What I'm saying, I mean, well, I don't know, but maybe
Okay.
just came
So
to my mind.
I have to create something that is have very similar purpose like client, but client also consume and also push messages, but our the letter client will only uh, no it not only it also will send messages. Okay, so this will be the next client. Okay. But for different queues.
Mm-hmm.
But this rabbit no, this dead letter client will receive messages from dead letter queues, but will send messages to the regular queues, right? To the compensate. Uh, uh, so it will not be dead letter queues.
Sorry,
I
I
mean,
didn't.
maybe I wonder because we will receive the messages from the letter queues from our for our that letter client, but we will
Mm-hmm.
push messages to the queue uh, to compensate messages. So this will be not the this will be a
No,
different case.
the compensate messages then are going to be obsolete. There are no compensation event names. This is what we are removing. With this
No,
mechanism, we are able to
we're
remove
removing
the.
error event name, not compensate even. We need to somehow compensate, right? So how we want to compensate those? Uh, mm,
Oh yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm.
we only removed error event. So one error.
Yeah, you're right.
But we need to keep the complete compensation event names because we need to somehow transfer those messages, compensate messages.
You're right. Mm-hmm.
But okay, but I will handle it. Now I have a plan what we need to do. Let's maybe focus on the orchestrator because I we have a plan that I'm research this. I create the code for RabbitMQ plugin that will handle those dead letters. Uh, do you want to discuss more about it, or maybe we can move forward
I
to
think we can move forward.
okay to the next topic? So okay, so next thing will be about the Saga Orchestrator. So create we've just created this rollback method, and today we will um, create some unit test Saga Orchestrator. I prepared the mm, the class for unit testing and listed some cases for the test, but we need to modify it because um, we have we don't have any more input message
Mm-hmm.
with the error. We will test the rollback method. So not started orchestrator exception. It should be exception that orchestrator is not started, and this should be for uh, uh, for the push method and for the rollback. We don't want to do both things when our orchestrator is not started. Okay, next thing. Invalid message, subscriber is not notified. Okay, that we can receive the invalid message. So engine will return null. So subscriber will not be notified. Should be notified. Shouldn't be notified. Invalid error message. And here we don't have this case anymore, I believe, because we have the method rollback. It should be like invalid transaction ID, not message. And yeah, subscriber is not notified. Yeah, but now I wonder, Saga subscriber. Should Saga subscriber? Okay. Do you,
Hello.
hello? Do you hear me? Do you see my
Yeah,
screen?
I lost you for a second.
Okay. Maybe it was something wrong with Slack because I don't have any problems with stream.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I wonder because we have this Saga subscriber, and should we notify Saga subscriber for both cases, or should it be the um, two? subscribers and subscribe Saga subscriber for the push and Saga subscriber for rollback.
Mm.
Because maybe it should be, because first Saga subscriber will listen for regular, I mean, no Saga subscriber, but first client will have own uh, subscriber, which will be send messages to the event completion names events, and for rollback we need to have a subscriber that will send the messages to the um, compensate queues.
No, this is the same queue in the end. I mean, what do you mean by compensate queue? I imagine that they're sending it to the same queue. I imagine it. That's the same exchange that they are sending it to.
Yeah, to the same exchange. Yes, to the same exchange. Because right now
I
with
imagine it that
mhm.
I imagine it that everything is working on a single queue. I think that when it's being partitioned, etc., this is something to be handled by the queue itself, not on the library side. I think I would need to check it also how the partitioning, etc., scaling is done on the RabbitMQ, but I imagine that set like it's just an operation of sending a message, and it's sending it to one queue. If the message is about compensation, but it's still a regular message, or if the message is about sending it to or about running another step, it's the same kind of message that's
Okay.
ending up on the same queue. The difference is that when there is the DLX, because the DLX is different queue that we are listening to. And then when we are doing the rollbacks, we are sending messages not to the DLX, but we are sending it to the regular queue. So this is
Mhm.
something that we need to think about, that we essentially need to be somehow connected to the two queues at one time. Because, or well, through the abstraction somehow be able to trigger rollback, meaning that it will send the messages to this normal queue on when the some other client is reading on the DLX, because we have two queues. I imagine, like from the like abstraction level, we have two queues. One is regular queue with every message, doesn't matter the type of the message, and dead letter where it has the fails. And compensations and regular messages are on this first one, so the regular queue, and fails are going to the DLX, and the client that is managing it also needs some kind of ability to trigger rollback messages that are being sent to the regular queue.
Uh,
So,
okay, but I didn't want to interrupt you, but there is a different situation here. Maybe I
okay,
will show you the code for the RabbitMQ plugin, because here we have a client, and as you can see, we're declaring the queue for each queue declared in transaction ledger. So we have a multiple queue. Why? Because if we will have a, you know, one queue for every message type in our transaction, so every microservice will listen to the same queue, and we will and this will probably will uh, receive the message, and then this microservice will reject the message because it will not be for
Simon, but this is not manageable. If we will define different queues for each message types, imagine that you have thousands.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, if you would like to, as a sysadministrator, DevOps, or however you call this role, if you are trying to monitor such queue that you're entering and you have thousands of queues, you are not able to figure out what is failing.
Yeah, but every
You're not able to
microservice
monitor the system as a whole.
every microservice will listen to this queue then, and every
To
microservice
which,
each microservice that will need to have, listen to this queue. And because we will have the one queue, right? If we will have one, then every microservice that will expect the message probably will need to listen for each message. Every message will need to inspect, and this will be probably a very dangerous situation because the microservice, let's say A, will receive the message for microservice B, and then will reject it.
no, wait,
No?
come on, no, this cannot happen like that. Then it means that the configuration of the topics is wrong if someone is receiving a message that they should not. I can tell you right now that we are not defining separate queues for each types of message. If the type of message is that you're saying that for each, as we have for each transaction, no, for each transaction ledger, you want to have the different queue, or for no,
No, for each queue. I mean, for each event name.
no,
Mm-hmm.
no way. Those systems don't work like that.
Okay, so let's say we have maybe we need to open this mirror. Mhm. Okay. Okay, so we have one queue, and here
Yes.
service one will send this start order payload plus compensate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this will go to the one queue. So why the service two will not get this message instead of orchestrator, for example? Because this service also listen to this queue.
Why? Because we will set a specific topic that this specific message is
Okay,
ordered
okay.
for the
So this is
orchestrator.
the topic. Mm, you mean
We
in
are able to distinguish. We are able to distinguish on which messages are supposed to be consumed by whom.
okay. Where is this
But the
schema?
idea of having a single queue, like in this, is, for
You mean
example,
mm-hmm,
in distributed, just let me finish, so I
mm-hmm.
will explain it to you why won't make multiple queues, because the idea of the queue in a large corporate systems is that you have some kind of a data lake, that every systems are pushing their messages onto there. So if you are creating a new service, you are actually able to consume every type of event that the whole system is producing.
Yeah,
That would be the first
for
idea
event
why
bus,
you want to
yes,
have.
yes. But I have different experiences for queues. I mean, for each type of queue, for each type of message, I in previous projects there was a uh, separate queue. for each type of message. Okay, but maybe let's go to the RabbitMQ.
Never seen a solution like that, honestly. And I honestly don't know why someone would make something like that.
Topics. Okay. How it works? Yeah, but here we have a topic, and depend of the topic, this will go to the Q1 or to Q2.
This will be appropriately routed. Yes.
Routed to the queues, right? Q1 or Q2. Not the... You see, here you have two queues. And maybe I don't understand something, but I don't really see how we could achieve this differently. Hmm. Routing queue, it's like okay, for every schema you see that there is a exchange that's redirect the message to the appropriate queue. So for each message type should be one queue.
So what would be the message types then?
I mean, event type, let's say. So for example, let's open the file you created is in the test. For our tests, there are step one right now are step 1, step 2, and step 3. Transaction 2 step 1, and transaction 2 step 2, and transaction 2 step 3, and also completion event names also. There are queues for those.
So two types.
I mean, no. For each step, all are should be free. So for this should be 3 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So it's
Wow. Wait a second. I will need to read, and then I will I will say what I'm thinking about this because
Okay.
I don't believe that this is a good solution. Still, even if we need to define more queues, then okay, but definitely we are not defining it like that. I mean, I don't really see a reason to define them the way you're describing that we would create 6 times 3 now.
Hmm.
Because I
Take two.
imagine that we are able to send different type of messages to a single queue. I mean, yeah, for example, that we can have a queue that's only responsible for sending messages to the orchestrator, like
Mm-hmm.
that. And then we have another queue that is going a different way, that it's
Yeah.
only responsible for sending messages from the orchestrator to the clients,
Okay.
right?
So
So we have
for
two queues,
mhm.
but not 6 times 3.
Okay, so from the client, it will be the problem because then we have a multiple microservices that are subscribed to the one queue, and the problem is that microservice can receive the message that is not for it. I mean, it's
But
uh,
how? If it's not so, if, how would it?
because there is
I
only
just don't.
single
I
queue.
just don't.
Then if it's single queue, then every message can be get by the every microservice.
Yes, exactly. That's the idea. But it's subscribing only to the messages that it wants to receive.
Yeah,
So
and
it doesn't. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if any type of message is sent to a single queue, then every one that's subscribing, that they will receive everything that is going there. I mean, there are messages flowing through the queue,
mm-hmm.
but each service that is subscribed to the queue is subscribed to the specific event, to the specific uh, type of the message.
So it will receive the message, will not acknowledge, right? It will send back to the queue. Because from the RabbitMQ plugin perspective, or maybe from the RabbitMQ this library, you subscribing to the queue. Oh, do you hear me?
I do.
Okay, because there are some are problems, but maybe not anymore. Okay, let's go.
I mean, look, I obviously need to refresh my memory to because I remembered it differently when I was working with this, and I yeah, I just remember it differently on how I was working with it. Maybe I need to refresh my memory so we will be on the same level. From my perspective, it seems weird to make it like that, but maybe it makes sense. Maybe I will read it and I will say, Shimon, you were right. But from my perspective, this sounds weird to me now. Then
Okay,
that's why I will need to take some time and read it because I obviously I'm missing something and I won't catch up with you in 5 minutes when I am listening to you and checking what you're doing and then trying to read the documents on the other screen.
okay, okay, okay. Yeah. Uh, so we have a lot to consider for the next stream. So uh, probably we can even finish right for now. Uh, because I can't write test when we don't know how many subscribers and so on.
Yeah,
Will be
that's true.
go
But it's
go.
But that's good that we are actually discussing it, because
Mm-hmm.
if we wouldn't talk about it, maybe we wouldn't understand each other later on. So this is pretty natural that we are bumping into
Yeah,
situations
yeah,
like that.
that's okay, and this will no, this will be better to cut those speculations about some problems as fast as it appears. So let's face it. I'm just want to show you that on the tutorial there is something like uh, queue. See, and there is a consumer, and consumer, each consumer is dedicated to the queue. But channel basic consume maybe has something like routing key, and as far as I remember, this is also that can
That's what I'm checking now. But
mhm,
this is pretty much the same as working with the topics. But this is exactly what I want to
mhm.
read and then understand and be able to explain it to you in the way that I want to explain it.
Okay,
Because
but
as I said 3 minutes ago, I need to
mhm,
refresh my memory on it.
okay. Message goes to the queues whose binding key exactly matches the routing queue of the message. Okay. So still we have to have the queue for each type. But I agree that we can consider one queue for receiving a message for orchestrator.
Yeah, that actually changes a lot. So let me think about this. Well, I will
Mhm.
need to draw this out basically on how to progress with this, because this changes everything. The DLXs and handling everything. So I need to think about this. And you
Okay.
can also take your time to think about it. We can try to discuss somewhere during the week or something if we
Yeah,
find
yeah,
time
yeah.
for it, because this changes a lot actually. So
Okay.
we need to.
I mean, I was like mm, mm, accommodated to the fact that there are a lot of queues in the system. So uh, it was not a shock for me that there is a situation like that. But hmm,
I mean, it's been, as I said, um, it's been some time for me since I worked with it, but I definitely don't remember like having the amount of queues that you just wanted to have, that we would have 6 times 3.
mhm.
Like, okay, I understand that we would have some amount for different type of, well, communication, but let me refresh my memory.
Yeah,
Again,
because
I don't really
because
want to push on it, because apparently I'm mistaken in some way, so I need to basically figure out
Because
what to do and how.
you mentioned about one uh, let's say I don't know, queues on the bus, because concept you mentioned, it's like for events, no messages. Because as far as I know, there are multiple queues that you can send the messages, and these messages are uh, for the specific part of the system. But event, this is the idea that everyone can have access to this event, and everyone can receive this. So maybe we want to use the event instead of queues. I mean messages on queues.
Again,
Yeah, yeah.
let me take my time and I'll do research because maybe I figured out something wrong and we need to take a step back and or at least I now need to take a step back and think again.
Okay, okay. So maybe we can finish for today. So thank you for everyone to being here, to listen to our conversation. If you have any um, um, ideas how we can um, resolve this issue, on maybe you have some others ideas how we can implement it differently, take us write comments. Thank
Yep,
you for
definitely.
today.
Thank you.